Bonjour! Today I'm going to look at using stories in the primary French classroom and show you some activities, and I'll look at stories that are written for learners of French and also for French children. The activities are generally the same. I would suggest that you think about who your learners are, where their French is, what they know, what they can cope with, also what you want to get out of it. Why are you reading them a story? What's the point of it? And what you want to do afterwards. I also like to think of reading story in 3 parts: a warm-up activity, the actual reading of the story, and lastly, a follow-up activity. So I'll show you what that looks like. L'année de Berthe. Warm-up activity. What do you think the story is going to be about? Use the clues on the front page here to help you. Have a think, and then have a chat with your partner and be prepared to share afterwards. If there were words that the children recognise, you can also ask them to look at the vocabulary or phrases that they might already know. In the sharing section, I would perhaps put the words on the board in English and also in French, or maybe even revise them by doing actions or mimes, whatever you've already taught them to help them remember them. Now, reading of the story. En hiver, en janvier, Berthe fait du ski. What's Berthe doing? Qu'est-ce qu'elle fait? How do you know? What season is it? C'est quelle saison? So I've asked some comprehension questions to see if they've understood it. For some children, you might like to give them choices to make it a wee bit easier. So for instance, instead of an open question with what's the season, you could ask them which one it is between 2 choices. C'est automne ou c'est l'hiver? Is it autumn or is it winter? And that means that everybody in the class can be included regardless of their level. We can also ask more simple questions like, what words in here do we recognise? What words look like English words? What month is it? And hopefully that will help them look at janvier and ski and make them realise that they actually know lots of words and can use that to help them figure it out. I won't go through the whole book, but it works through the different seasons and it works through the different months. As a follow-up activity, you could then get children to create their own book similar to this, with the title of a season and then a month, and they could either just copy the sentence and change the name from Berthe to someone else, or they could create their own phrases if they were at that level, either with words that you give them, or they could just simply create some pictures. Or they could create a very simple book just with the months and a picture for each month. Okay, if we look at this book, Choupi now, Choupi à la neige, this is much more complicated because it's aimed at French children. And you can find books like this online on YouTube with people reading them out loud. So as you can see, there's pictures and text. You might just choose a picture and you might read the story to them, and then you might simply say, c'est quelle saison? What season is it? Or c'est quel mois? What month is it? And get them to guess. You might read the text and ask them if there are any words that they recognise as you're reading it. If you're reading them a book like this, the main aim would be to get them just to listen and enjoy listening to a story. Much harder to do comprehension activities with a book with lots of language that they're not familiar with. But you could, with older children, ask them perhaps